You've always been the one who feels everything, the one who listens when no one else does, the one who gives second chances because you see the pain behind people's actions, even when those people use that kindness against you. But one day, something inside you shifts. You stop over-explaining, you stop reacting, you stop absorbing everyone else's chaos, and without saying a word, you start doing something far more powerful. You begin outsmarting the narcissist. They can't understand it. The same empath they once controlled, with guilt, silence, and emotional confusion, suddenly stops responding. You no longer explain your worth, chase their approval, or react to their manipulation. You've gone quiet, not out of fear, but because you finally understand your value. And that silence, it terrifies them. This isn't about revenge. It's about awareness. When you stop giving them your energy, you take away their power. You start seeing every tactic, every guilt trip, every I miss you message for what it really is. Desperation, not love. You don't need to shout, argue, or prove anything. Your peace becomes your weapon. In this video, you'll uncover how empaths outsmart narcissists without saying a word by using awareness, calm detachment, and silence as the ultimate form of emotional intelligence. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath, like this video, and comment, "Silence is my power." Because when an empath stops explaining, the narcissist finally starts losing. They observe instead of reacting. The moment you stop reacting, everything changes. For so long, you've been trained, often unconsciously, to respond to every shift in tone, every guilt trip, every emotional trap the narcissist throws your way. They've learned exactly how to pull your empathy like strings on a puppet. And for years, you might have believed that staying calm, reasoning, or explaining would make them see your heart. But it never did, because narcissists don't want understanding, they want reaction. When you finally step back and begin to observe instead of react, you take away their main weapon. You stop giving them emotional access. You start noticing patterns, how they start arguments just to feel important, how they twist your words to make you question yourself, how their tone changes the second they sense you pulling away. You realize the truth, none of it is random. It's strategy. And by observing, you're now the one in control of the game. Observation doesn't mean coldness. It means awareness. You begin to see every manipulative tactic like a puzzle being played in slow motion. When they try to provoke guilt, you see the insecurity behind it. When they act superior, you recognize it as fear of losing relevance. When they play the victim, you see it for what it really is, a distraction from accountability. This awareness is power because it allows you to respond intentionally, not emotionally. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself. You no longer fall into the same conversations that go in circles. You understand that the narcissist isn't looking for peace, they're looking for control. And by staying calm, by simply watching, you break the emotional rhythm they depend on. They can't win a reaction that doesn't come. That's when they start to feel uneasy because your silence, your stillness, and your emotional neutrality expose everything they try to hide. They realize you've stopped playing their game and now they're the only ones still performing. You're not cold, you're wise. You're not distant, you're finally awake. And that shift from reacting to observing is the exact moment the narcissist starts to lose their grip. They use silence as strategy. Silence used to feel uncomfortable to you, like you owed people explanations, reassurance, or emotional clarity. But now you've learned that silence is one of your greatest strengths. Narcissists thrive on noise, arguments, drama, endless conversations that go nowhere. They manipulate through words, twisting them until you start to doubt your own reality. That's why your silence is their biggest weakness. It's the one thing they can't twist, can't control, and can't use against you. When you stop explaining, they start panicking. Your silence makes them confront the one thing they've avoided their entire lives, themselves. Without your reactions, they lose the emotional mirror that once reflected their power. You're no longer feeding them energy, and suddenly, they don't know who they are without your attention. That quiet, the very thing they used to mistake for weakness, now becomes the proof that you've taken back control. Silence doesn't mean indifference. It means you're done engaging in games that don't lead to growth. You're no longer reacting to guilt trips, defensive outbursts, or fake apologies. You understand that not every comment deserves a reply, not every message deserves a response, and not every person deserves access to your peace. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. They'll test that silence, sending emotional hooks, disguised as concern or pretending they've changed. But you know better now. You can feel the manipulation behind the words, the desperation behind the sudden kindness. Your silence isn't about punishment, it's about protection. It's your way of saying, I've seen enough. The narcissist doesn't just fear silence, they unravel in it, because in the absence of your reaction, their control dissolves. The show ends, and they're left alone with the truth they've spent their life running from. Your silence is not weakness, it's awareness in its highest form. It's emotional intelligence turned into armor. Because when you stop reacting, you stop feeding the illusion of their power, and that's when yours truly begins. They control their emotional energy. One of the most powerful shifts an empath can make is learning to control their emotional energy. For most of your life, you've probably felt everything other people's moods, pain, and chaos as if it were your own. That sensitivity made you compassionate, but it also made you vulnerable to manipulation. Narcissists depend on that emotional openness. They feed off your reactions, your empathy, and your desire to make peace. But once you learn to manage where your energy goes, you take away their fuel completely. Controlling your emotional energy doesn't mean shutting down your heart. It means deciding who gets access to it. You stop letting every argument drain you. You stop letting other people's chaos become your responsibility. You begin to separate what's yours to carry from what's being projected onto you. And for the first time, you realize that peace isn't found by fixing others, it's found by protecting yourself. You start recognizing how a narcissist tries to pull you in emotionally. They'll provoke you with half-truths, guilt, or even fake vulnerability, hoping you'll absorb the tension and soothe it. But now, instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you observe, you let their emotions stay where they belong, with them. You no longer let their storms invade your calm. That's not coldness, it's control. When you learn to stay centered, they lose leverage. They can't manipulate your feelings if they can't move your energy. Your stillness becomes unnerving to them because they're used to empaths who overgive, overfeel, and overexplain. But you've reached a different level now. You realize that emotional control is not about suppressing your feelings, it's about mastering them. Know exactly when to speak, when to walk away, and when to say nothing at all. Your emotions stop being their weapon and start becoming your wisdom. That's when the dynamic changes forever, because a narcissist can only control the emotions you give them access to. Now they have none, and in that silence, they finally realize the empath they once fed on has become untouchable. They mirror the narcissist calmly. When an empath reaches emotional maturity, they no longer confront narcissists with anger, they mirror them with calm. This doesn't mean copying their toxicity or sinking to their level. It means reflecting their behavior in a way that silently exposes it. The empath stops over-explaining, over-giving, and over-apologizing. Instead, they become a mirror, calm, composed, and unbothered, showing the narcissist exactly who they are without saying a single word. When the narcissist uses manipulation, the empath stops reacting and simply mirrors back neutrality. When they raise their voice, the empath stays still. When they try to guilt trip, the empath responds with boundaries. This calm reflection is unsettling to the narcissist because they rely on emotional imbalance. They need you to react so they can feel superior. But when you hold your composure, their tactics lose effect. They start seeing themselves through your steadiness, and that quiet exposure eats at them more than any confrontation ever could. You begin to notice the shift. Their usual tactics, gaslighting, blame shifting, emotional outbursts, stop landing. You don't defend, you don't chase clarity, and you don't play their emotional games. You reflect calm back to chaos, and in doing so, you force the narcissist to sit in their own discomfort, something they've spent a lifetime avoiding. The beauty of this calm mirroring is that it gives you control without confrontation. It dismantles their power silently. They'll try harder at first, pushing buttons, testing limits, but when your energy doesn't change, when your peace remains intact, they realize they can't reach you anymore. That's when the balance shifts. The manipulator becomes the exposed one, and you become the mirror they can't escape. You don't need to prove who's right. You don't need to expose them publicly. Your calmness is the exposure, because nothing unsettles a narcissist more than being faced with their own reflection, especially when it comes from the one person they thought they could control. They stop explaining themselves. There comes a moment when an empath realizes that explaining themselves to a narcissist is pointless. You could pour your heart out, use perfect logic, and speak with honesty, and it would still be twisted against you. Because narcissists don't listen to understand, they listen to manipulate. Every word you give them becomes a tool they can use to regain control. So eventually you stop explaining, you stop justifying your feelings, your boundaries, your silence, because you finally understand that people committed to misunderstanding you will never hear the truth anyway. When you reach that point, everything changes. You conserve your energy instead of wasting it on endless clarification. You don't argue about what they meant or defend what you said. You stop trying to prove your goodness to someone who benefits from doubting it. This isn't coldness, it's wisdom. You learn that peace doesn't come from being understood by them, it comes from understanding yourself. Every time you refuse to explain, you deny them emotional leverage. Narcissists thrive on confusion. They twist facts, question your memory, and shift blame until you start second-guessing your own reality. But when you respond with calm clarity, or sometimes no response at all, the game ends. They can't manipulate silence, and they can't argue with boundaries that don't need explanation. At first, they'll accuse you of being distant, arrogant, or selfish. That's because they can no longer control you through conversation. Your refusal to explain feels like rejection to them, but to you, it's freedom. You've broken the cycle of defending your truth to people who never respected it. You start realizing that your worth isn't something you owe anyone an explanation for. Your choices, your peace, your boundaries, they're valid, whether others approve or not. And when you stop explaining yourself, you start walking in quiet confidence. Because the more you explain, the more you invite chaos. But the moment you go silent, you remind the narcissist and yourself that your peace no longer requires their permission. They withdraw access without warning. When an empath finally reaches emotional clarity, they stop announcing their boundaries, they simply enforce them. There's no dramatic goodbye, no long message, no confrontation. Just distance, quiet, deliberate distance. After years of explaining, forgiving, and giving endless chances, they realize that real power comes from access control. The narcissist doesn't deserve a speech, they deserve silence. And so, without warning, the empath disappears from the emotional battlefield entirely. This withdrawal isn't done out of spite or revenge, it's done out of self-respect. You've already tried every other approach, empathy, patience, understanding, and none of it changed the dynamic. Narcissists don't hear words, they only notice results. So instead of pleading for peace, you create it. You stop replying to manipulative texts, you stop attending conversations that drain you, you stop being available to someone who only valued you when you were accessible. The beauty of this silence is how effective it is. Narcissists expect confrontation because conflict feeds them. They need your reaction to feel relevant. But when you vanish emotionally, when you stop showing up to the chaos, they lose their audience. They start scrambling for attention, trying every trick they know to pull you back in: guilt, pity, anger, nostalgia. But nothing works anymore because you've learned that closure isn't something they can give. It's something you give yourself by walking away. And the best part, you don't need to explain your absence. You don't owe them clarity, comfort, or closure. You understand that their confusion isn't your responsibility, it's their consequence. They'll call you cold, changed, or selfish, but what they're really saying is, I can't reach you anymore. By withdrawing access, you take back your energy, your peace, and your power. You stop being the supply that fuels their ego. You break the unspoken contract that said they could drain you whenever they wanted. And when you do it silently, with calm certainty, it delivers a message louder than any confrontation ever could. You're no longer theirs to manipulate. You've moved beyond explanation, beyond argument, into freedom. They let time reveal the truth. Empaths eventually learn that truth doesn't need to be forced. It just needs patience. For so long, you may have tried to make others see who the narcissist really was, explaining, warning, proving, defending. But every time you spoke, they twisted your words to make you look like the problem. That's when you realize something powerful. Time exposes what words never can. So instead of fighting to be believed, you step back and let life do the talking. You stop defending your reputation. You stop warning new people about the narcissist's behavior. You stop chasing justice or closure. You've seen the cycle too many times. They charm, manipulate, deceive, and eventually reveal themselves without your help. You no longer feel the need to prove anything because truth doesn't need your defense. It has its own way of showing up, slowly but unmistakably. The narcissist, on the other hand, can't maintain their mask forever. They thrive on short-term impressions, pretending to be kind, generous, or misunderstood, but time always reveals consistency, and consistency is where the truth lives. Eventually, their stories start to contradict, their image starts to crack, and the people who once believed them begin to notice the same red flags you did. You don't have to say a word. They expose themselves through repetition. Meanwhile, your calm silence becomes proof of your strength. While they scramble to control the narrative, you remain grounded. You're not reacting, not defending, not trying to correct lies because you know who you are, and time always sides with authenticity. The same people who once doubted you start to see what you saw all along. The narcissist will panic when this happens. They'll try to rewrite history, play the victim, or claim you're cold and unforgiving, but their desperation only confirms what your silence already made clear. They were never honest, and you were never the problem. By trusting time instead of fighting battles you can't win, you take back your peace. You understand that truth has patience while lies have expiration dates. And when the truth finally surfaces, you won't need to say, "I told you so." Your silence will have said it for you all along. They detach with compassion, not revenge. When an empath finally detaches from a narcissist, it's not because they've stopped caring, it's because they've started caring for themselves. After giving endless chances, forgiving manipulation, and trying to love someone who only saw their kindness as weakness, they realize something essential. Compassion without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. So they let go, not with hate, not with bitterness, but with peace. Detachment for an empath isn't an act of revenge, it's an act of clarity. You finally see the difference between love and control, between helping and enabling. You understand that no matter how much empathy you give, a narcissist will only take, never reflect it back. And so you walk away quietly. You don't seek to punish them, expose them, or prove how much they hurt you. You simply stop participating in their chaos. That's what makes this kind of detachment so powerful. It's calm, graceful, and final. Narcissists expect rage because anger keeps the connection alive. They want to see you broken, emotional, or desperate because that tells them they still matter. But when you detach with compassion, when you wish them healing but refuse to carry their pain, you remove their last thread of control. They can't use guilt, blame, or chaos to pull you back because you've risen above the level where those things even reach. You begin to see them differently, not as villains to destroy, but as deeply wounded people who refuse to grow. That perspective frees you. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you stop identifying with their pain. You stop being your emotional anchor and start being your own source of peace. Compassionate detachment is strength disguised as softness. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you don't need revenge to win. Your healing is your victory. Your peace is your closure. You move forward lighter, wiser, and more whole. Because when you detach with compassion, you prove something the narcissist will never understand. That real power doesn't come from control. It comes from love that no longer needs to suffer to prove itself. In the end, empaths don't outsmart narcissists with words. They outsmart them with awareness. You don't need revenge, confrontation, or validation. Your strength comes from the quiet decision to stop feeding what hurts you. When you observe instead of react, when you protect your energy, when you walk away without explanation, you take back every ounce of power that was once used against you. The narcissist won't understand it at first. They'll call your peace cold, your silence cruel, and your boundaries selfish. But you'll know the truth. What you're doing isn't cruelty, it's healing. It's the moment you stop trying to save people who refuse to save themselves. It's the moment you start choosing yourself, and that's something they can never control again. Your silence speaks louder than their manipulation. Your calmness reveals their chaos, and your distance delivers the closure their words never could. That's the real victory, not in proving them wrong, but in proving to yourself that you no longer need to be understood by broken people to feel whole. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath, like this video, and comment, "Peace is my power." Because the moment an empath stops explaining and starts observing is the moment the narcissist truly loses control.